Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a huge update that will affect millions of UK pensioners, and it's one of the most significant housing-related changes we've seen in years. From the 21st of October 2025, brand new housing rules from the Department for Work and Pensions, or DWP, will come into effect. These changes could reshape how housing benefits are calculated, who qualifies for support, and how pensioners' homes and property ownership are treated under the law. Whether you own your home, rent privately, live in social housing, or share ownership with family, this new policy could directly impact your financial future. So, stay tuned, because we're breaking down everything you need to know before the deadline hits. Let's start with the big picture. For millions of older Britons, their home isn't just a roof over their head, it represents safety, stability, and independence. But the DWP has now confirmed that major reforms are on the way to modernize the system and bring housing-related benefits in line with the Universal Credit Framework. Officials say these changes are designed to reduce fraud, streamline how support is distributed, and ensure that those who truly qualify receive what they are entitled to. However, experts are warning that many pensioners could lose part of their support if they don't act before the October 2025 deadline. So why is this happening now? According to the DWP, the current housing support system is outdated and doesn't reflect the real-life situations of many retirees. Over the years, more pensioners have started co-owning homes with children, holding property through trusts, or even investing in secondary homes. All of this has created complications when it comes to calculating benefit entitlements. On top of that, rising housing support costs and increasing cases of undeclared property ownership have forced the government to tighten up verification. The DWP will now use advanced data matching systems to cross-check records between HMRC, local councils, and the Land Registry. This means that details about property ownership, rental income, and housing status will automatically be reviewed to flag any inconsistencies. Essentially, the government is modernizing the system to ensure that every penny of support goes to those who genuinely qualify, but that also means stricter checks and new responsibilities for pensioners to keep their information accurate. Now let's talk about what exactly changes from the 21st of October 2025. Under the new framework, pensioners who receive housing benefit, or the housing element of universal credit, will face revised eligibility tests. These updated tests will take a closer look at how properties are owned, whether rental agreements are legitimate, and whether any property-related income is being reported correctly. If a pensioner owns, co-owns, or has a financial interest in another property, even if that property is abroad, it could now affect their entitlement. Likewise, those who receive rent from family homes, or live in properties owned by relatives, may need to provide new forms of proof to show their arrangements are legitimate. The DWP has also announced that local councils will begin automatic housing reviews every 12 months to ensure that records remain up to date. For pensioners, that means more paperwork, but also more clarity. The DWP has made it clear, failure to keep your housing details updated could result in payments being suspended while your situation is reviewed. In other words, staying proactive is essential. So who's going to be affected the most? Well, the new rules will primarily impact pensioners who receive housing benefit, or universal credit's housing element. But within that group, there are key categories that need to pay special attention. If you share ownership of your property, perhaps with a child or family member, you'll now be required to declare this more explicitly. If you've inherited property, even partially, or if your name is on a family mortgage, this may now count as an asset that reduces your eligibility. Additionally, pensioners who live in council or social housing will also see more frequent verification checks. Landlords will now be required to confirm occupancy, rental agreements, and rent payment history. This is all part of the DWP's wider initiative to eliminate fraud, but it could also create confusion for honest pensioners who simply haven't updated their records in a while. The DWP has emphasized that its goal isn't to punish pensioners, but to ensure fairness, yet many experts say the system could still be confusing, especially for those unfamiliar with the digital updates now required. Let's move on to one of the biggest questions: how property ownership itself will now influence benefits. This is one of the most significant aspects of the new reform. Starting from October 2025, the DWP will treat all forms of property ownership full, shared, or trust-based as countable when assessing your benefits. They'll also be using information from Land Registry to confirm the real ownership structure of every property linked to a pensioner's name. That means if you're listed on a mortgage, even if you don't live in that property, it could be seen as an asset. Similarly, if you rent from a family member, you'll now need to prove that the rental agreement is formal, legally binding, and commercially valid, not just an informal arrangement. So, if you're currently renting a home owned by your son or daughter, for instance, it's time to make sure that there's an official contract in place. Otherwise, your housing benefit could be reduced or stopped until the situation is verified. Now, let's talk about the timeline, and this part is critical. Pensioners have until the 21st of October 2025 to ensure that all of their housing and ownership details are up to date. The DWP has set this as the final compliance deadline, meaning that anyone who hasn't reviewed or updated their information by then could face a temporary suspension of housing benefit. So what should you do before that date? First, review your DWP records and make sure your property ownership status is correct. If you rent, verify that your rental agreement is properly documented and still valid. If you have any doubts, for example, if you're unsure whether your name on a family property could affect your benefits, you should contact Citizens Advice or your local council for clarification. Now, what about those receiving universal credit? For pensioners transitioning from housing benefit to universal credit, the DWP has confirmed that the new ownership rules will automatically apply. This means that even if you've been receiving housing support for years, your claim may still be reassessed once the new framework goes live. Couples where one partner is under pension age and the other is over may also face new checks. These mixed-age households often have complex eligibility rules, and the DWP says it will be reviewing them closely to ensure consistency. While this may sound daunting, the department insists that these measures will ultimately make the system fairer and more efficient, though it does warn of possible temporary delays during the transition period. So, what about the financial side? How much could pensioners lose or gain under these changes? According to early DWP projections, around 120,000 pensioners across the UK will need reassessment. Of those, roughly 15% could see their payments reduced, particularly those with undeclared property or shared ownership. But not all the news is negative. Some pensioners may actually gain if their housing data was previously incomplete or undervalued, as updated local housing allowance rates may work in their favor, especially for those living in high-cost rental areas. Still, the key message here is to take action early. If you wait until the last minute, you risk delays, confusion, and even missed payments. Let's also talk about how to safely report changes to the DWP or HMRC. The government has issued a strong warning about scams and fake messages that claim to help update your records. Pensioners should only use official DWP or HMRC channels to make changes. You can log into the official DWP website, update your details through your Universal Credit online journal, or contact your local council directly. Never share personal or housing information with third-party agents or anyone contacting you via unsolicited messages or calls. And always keep a record of your communications and updates, it's your proof in case of any future disputes. Financial advisors and housing experts are also weighing in. Many are warning that a large number of older pensioners may not fully understand the complexity of these new rules. Organizations such as Age UK and Citizens Advice are now calling on the DWP to improve communication and outreach. They are also offering free guidance sessions for pensioners who have questions about shared ownership, family lettings, or overseas property. Their advice is simple: don't ignore these changes, and don't assume they don't apply to you. Even small details, like being listed as a co-owner on a relative's property, could affect your benefit entitlement. To sum it up, these reforms mark one of the biggest overhauls to pensioner housing benefits in more than a decade. While the government says it's about fairness and modernization, the reality is that it introduces new responsibilities for everyone receiving support. If you or someone you know relies on housing benefits, now is the time to review your situation carefully. Double-check your records, update your information, and seek advice if you're unsure. The October 21, 2025 deadline is firm. Failing to act could lead to payment suspensions or lengthy reassessments. Acting early, on the other hand, could save you months of unnecessary stress and ensure your benefits continue without disruption. So, let's recap. The DWP's new housing rule changes will redefine how housing support is assessed. Property ownership, shared arrangements, and undeclared assets will all be under closer scrutiny. Local councils will begin annual housing reviews. Universal credit and housing benefit rules will be aligned. And perhaps most importantly, pensioners will be required to verify and keep their housing details accurate to avoid any interruptions. If you're unsure where to start, begin by checking your benefit records and ensuring your declared address and ownership information are accurate. If you co-own property or rent from a relative, make sure your agreements are formalized in writing. Contact your local council or Citizens Advice if you need help understanding what counts as ownership under the new guidelines. At the end of the day, the DWP says these changes are meant to protect the integrity of the benefits system, but for pensioners, the most important thing is staying informed and proactive. Don't wait until it's too late. Share this update with anyone over 60, especially those receiving housing support. They might not even be aware that these changes are coming. Here at UK Senior Insights, we'll continue monitoring every DWP announcement to keep you informed about the latest updates on pensions, benefits, and housing policy. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. It really helps the channel reach more people who need this information. And of course, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another important update. Thanks for watching, take care, and remember, staying informed today could save your benefits tomorrow.